Ladies and gentlemen, it is a privilege for me to be with you here in the city your president calls home. Tomorrow, we celebrate World Refugee Day. And in the last 4 years, I've done so in the most remote corners of the world, from Uganda to the border between Liberia and Sierra Leone. But in 2009, I've decided to come and be in Chicago in the World Refugee Day with the resettled refugee community that lives in this city, exactly to raise awareness at global level for the importance of resettlement as a key strategic solution for refugees around the world. The examples we have witnessed of how important it has been for people coming from Africa, from Latin America, from Asia, to find in the United States a new life with wonderful opportunities for them and for their families. This demonstrates how important resettlement is worldwide. And so we do not only serve the refugee cause going to Uganda or Sierra Leone, we also serve the refugee cause coming here to this wonderful city of Chicago, where such a generosity and effective action has been possible supporting refugees, and draw the attention of the world that many more resettlement opportunities need to be created. Thank you very much for what you are doing. And it is indeed a privilege to be able to be here with you in this remarkable event of the NIJC, the Heartland Alliance, as true representatives of the strengths, the compassion, and the wisdom of the American civil society. And indeed, uniquely among UN agencies, our founding statute enjoins us to cooperate not only with governments, but with the non-governmental organizations many of you belong to. And this is not the only or most important reason why we do it, not only to obey to our statutes. People's fundamental rights, including those of refugees, the displaced, and the stateless, are best protected and promoted by civil society. Acting alone or merely with other UN agencies, we would not be able to meet the real needs of the real people. We rely on the people of the United States for the daily example of commitment and compassion towards refugees and asylum seekers. In 2008, there were more than 42 million people uprooted worldwide, 16 million refugees, about 26 million internally displaced as a result of conflict. Not crossing a border, not being able to enjoy international protection, being within the borders of their own country, under the authority of their own government, sometimes a government that is not part of the solution is part of the problem. About 80% of all refugees and the overwhelming majority of the internally displaced are hosted by countries in the developing world. The largest of them all, Pakistan, with nearly 1.8 million Afghan refugees and now 2 million Pakistanis displaced by the events taking place in the Swat Valley and other areas of Northwest Frontier Province. The governments of Jordan and Syria, for example, estimate that they host about 1.5 million Iraqis, almost all in urban settings. And Chad, Tanzania, or Kenya together host nearly 1 million refugees. And there are two major types of crises that are evident in the world of today. The first is an arc of crises stretching from Pakistan and Afghanistan through Iraq and Palestine to Sudan and to Somalia and the Horn of Africa. These crises are clearly relevant to global security and feature some of the forms of interference between the so-called Western world and the so-called Muslim world. And we all fully understand why your president went recently to Cairo to deliver such a wonderful speech regarding the extreme importance of nurturing this relationship between the Western world and the Muslim world. But this group of situations are increasingly interlinked, and most of them are unfortunately deteriorating. Beyond Pakistan and Iran, there was a 60% increase in the number of Afghan asylum seekers in 2008 compared with 2007. Not only Afghans are going back home in smaller and smaller numbers, but they are now tending to spread after years in Pakistan and in Iran without finding a solution for their plight. New internal displacement in Pakistan, as I said, exceeds 2 million people. The government of Sudan expelled international NGOs providing vital assistance to displaced. And in Somalia, the glimmer of hope has vanished. More than 100,000 people have been displaced in the last weeks, and the increasing violence between different religious affiliations represents a new threat to regional stability. But there is a second group of crises. They are more isolated, but multiplying all over the world. For example, in Central African Republic, in Colombia, in the Democratic Republic of Congo, in Zimbabwe, in Sri Lanka, where the humanitarian needs have not diminished with the end of the conflict. These crises can command some attention from the global media, but that attention does not last. Lacking obvious relevance to global security, their impact is seen as local or regional. And so too usually are the efforts to resolve them. And since solutions for humanitarian problems are never humanitarian, they are always political, the absence of sustained worldwide attention encourages these situations to continue and the needs of people to be ignored. Ladies and gentlemen, 3 major challenges confront humanitarians today. Each is as relevant here in the United States as it is to UNHCR in the more than 100 countries in which we operate. Responding to these challenges has been made more difficult by the global economic crisis. Jobs are being lost, remittances are following, xenophobia is rising, unfortunately, in many parts of the world. And more people are under pressure to migrate, while those who have already migrated may come under pressure to return. And the number and scale of humanitarian crises seems set to worsen, while humanitarian and development budgets may be reduced. The first challenge in the contraction of is the contraction of humanitarian space. And there are several reasons for this. Increasingly, conflict is internal rather than international. And it is also more and more asymmetric, involving a multiplicity of actors. A theater of conflict today likely includes several rebel factions, politically or ethnically linked militias, bandits, government soldiers, and foreign forces, including both regional bodies and the UN. Such complexity existed in the past, but it was exceptional. Now it is nearer the norm. And in situations where militaries are present, civilian and military spheres are increasingly blurred. And peacekeepers are sent where there is no peace to keep, while militaries increasingly undertake humanitarian activities in an effort to win hearts and minds. Humanitarian actors become identified with one or another of the parties to a conflict and are targeted in consequence. At the same time, government attitudes on state sovereignty have hardened. Particularly since September 11th and the responses to it, the concept of foreign intervention, even if humanitarian in orientation, has come under suspicion. And the result has been less room for humanitarian actors to operate. The recent examples of Sudan and Sri Lanka demonstrate it in a clear way. And ladies and gentlemen, here in the United States, the challenge of shrinking humanitarian space is different. It is not about room for international actors to operate. It is about the ability of those in need of protection to get it. In responding to the devastation of September 11th, wide bars to admissibility were enacted for terrorist-related activities. As a result, and however unintentionally, some of those victimized by terrorism have themselves been prevented from acquiring protection or permanent status in the United States.